I 100% support the Black Lives Matter movement. I think, for me personally, like, the Black struggle is so prevalent in America right now, and there is, well, I shouldn't say there is not. There is very few people who actually speak on behalf of the Black struggle and the problems that African Americans face. And I think the Black Lives Matter movement gives a voice to the African American struggle because that voice isn't being heard, it's being ignored, which is why there's such an emphasis on Black Lives Mattering, because they aren't being paid attention to, they aren't mattering. So I think the Black Lives Matter movement gives a voice to not just even leaders who define what the Black struggle is, but every person individually gets to say, okay, this is what I'm facing in America and I want justice for this. And people always criticize the Black Lives Matter movement as not being organized, but I love how genius it is that each person gets to tell their own struggle, each person gets to define their experience in America, because America likes to do that too. All Black people are the same, their experiences are the same. And I love that the Black Lives Matter movement allows for that representation to be had, for each person to individually define what their struggle is and what they want to be heard through this movement.
It's a recognition that like we're here, like our presence, because I feel like just the history of America is like completely like covered up like Black people and just everything that we go through, and just like how big and influential Black people are to American life and society. So I feel like it's like they're finally recognizing like, hey, we're still here, like we matter too.
I think that it's like, going off what both of y'all said, it's kind of like showing that like, yes, we've come so far, but like we still have a lot to go and a lot that needs to be covered, and it's giving a voice to the struggles of like present day Black Americans and what they face and what we go through. Yes. We're all in a civil rights class together, like right now this semester, that's how we met each other. And I think it's interesting like seeing like the longevity of the civil rights movement. Like we think of it like March on Washington, but like to see it started from like the 30s and see like the individual contributions that were made. I feel like this is kind of like a modern day leading up to something that like that. So
I think, I'm not bashing America, but America has this tendency to, if you see progress, then the problem's fixed. And that's not how change happens. Change happens gradually. And I think for a lot of people, they see the civil rights movement and they think, okay, Black people are equal to whites and the playing field is leveled. And they think that the civil rights movement has ended. But I like to think of the Black Lives Matter movement as an extension of the civil rights movement. It never ended. Like, we are still fighting for equal pay. We're still fighting for recognition, like Chrissy said. We're still fighting for representation in government. We're still fighting for basic human rights. And the Black Lives Matter movement for me is an extension of the civil rights. It's like our opportunity to participate in gaining civil rights, basic human rights for African American people in America.
Ooh,
We're gonna have to go here again.
Guys, let me go. No.
she's dead.
I'm so dead.
Skull emoji.
Go for it. Get my thoughts.
I'll be the nice.
I know,
Chrissy
would be the calm.
Progressively.
My experience as a Black student at BYU, it's been, what's a good word? I feel like it's been eye-opening. I think that like being at BYU, it makes you like learn a lot about yourself, just being in this environment for one, and it makes you learn about other people too. Because I think you become fully aware that you are different than other people in like every kind of setting, and you feel it. And I think sometimes it's just like a struggle, and but it's been good for me. It's helped me grow.
Yeah, I always say that I wasn't aware of my race in the sense like, yes, I knew I was black, but I wasn't aware of like the stereotypes associated with that. I wasn't aware of how others could perceive that until I came to BYU, which is kind of ironic. But yeah, so I always say that that was interesting, like navigate the world differently after that. But yeah, other than that, I feel like it's been overall positive. You definitely do feel different, like you feel that internally, and you can see that too through like the way people act with you. But yeah, I feel like it's been overall positive. There's definitely been some like interesting experiences and some sad ones too, but it's been overall okay. Yeah.
Okay, so BYU, you know, I don't want to like criticize BYU too much, but I think BYU and the administration needs to hear the Black perspective because it isn't heard a lot. And if it is heard, I believe that it's not paid attention to enough or it's ignored. So BYU, my freshman year is like the greatest place ever. Like I love this school, greatest people ever. And then after my mission, quote me on this, I became more woke. Quote me on this. So I definitely, like Jody Ann said, I'm from Mississippi. Like I knew I was black, but I've never been in such a white space as BYU. BYU is the whitest space I've ever been in. And so I became super aware of my blackness here and how I'm perceived, how I have to like think twice about the views that I have before expressing them. Just like now my religion class, we're talking about D&C 134 and about politics, and I was like, can I just leave right now? Because like all these people are very same-minded and I don't think the same way that they do, and I don't agree with what they're saying really. And like that's a struggle. Always being like the dissenting voice, always being like the other, the different one. And something else that annoys me is kind of like I was saying about the Black Lives Matter movement, that when I speak, I'm the voice of black people, which don't hold me accountable for what black people believe. This is my experience, and this is my opinion. But BYU has taught me to be more aware of my blackness and has taught me to discover who I am in relation to my blackness and in relation to being a member of the church. I never knew it would be, I'm pretty sure I struggled with this, but now I'm like discovering how to articulate how hard it is to be a black Mormon woman in the church. It's so hard because your experience is so whitewashed. I want to say your experience is, we're all children of God, which completely erases my experiences as a black person. So BYU has taught me to be more aware of my blackness. There are good things about BYU. The people are really nice. All of the people that I meet who are ignorant in the sense that they aren't exposed to black perspectives are willing to learn. Most of them are. Some aren't, and that's really sad. But it's just a struggle just being in such a Eurocentric America space where your ideas and belief and very existence and identity conflicts with what is the norm here. And that's really hard. So, yeah.
I can't like say just students, but just like in this vicinity of Utah. I think that like people a lot of times they kind of pit our support for like Black Lives Matter, like movements and stuff as like against our faith. I think that's something that all of us have like experienced. Because like even me, I served a mission, and like people have like made comments to me like that I'm not like a really good member of the church and like things like that just because I support movements. But it's like we are members of the church, but we're also black, and like this is our experience, and like this is who we are. So it's kind of like people are denying you a right to be yourself, I guess. So that's how I feel.
That's definitely true. I feel like it's always like questioned and challenged. Like Chrissy was kind of saying a little bit. It's always like, what? Like you actually support that? Like you're one of those? Like you're kind of like extra other, like, you know. And with any kind of movement, I feel like, especially Black Lives Matter, it's like, oh, what? Like you support that? And people definitely like associate you with being like radical, like rebellious, or like anti-police when you like say, you know, there's issues and I don't agree with this and I don't support this and I support this, and yeah, so that's kind of been my experience like here. It's like almost like you're like alienated further.
It's true.
Yeah, I like wore my Black Lives Matter shirt on campus for the first time people saw me, because I knew that I would get a lot of stares, and I was like, you know what? I don't even care anymore. I am done denying myself because of what these people think. Whatever. If they don't like it, turn your eye. You can ask me questions about it. Let me enlighten you, but I'm not taking my shirt off. And I remember going to like the women's march in Salt Lake and wearing my Black Lives Matter shirt, and somebody was like, yeah, man. I was like, man, one time I lived in Salt Lake. People were so happy, but like, even when I wore my shirt, like a lot of people like stared at me, looked at me, and like even like comments people have made in class about the Black Lives movement, Black Lives Matter movement, it's super interesting how people in their mind define what the Black Lives Matter movement is when it's really not that. So like in class when we'll talk about like Black Lives Matter movement, there'll be a few students like, well really the Black Lives Matter movement is a terrorist organization because of like people who have participated in this movement and like have rioted or done dumb things that do not represent the actual movement. They are just participants of the movement. They actually don't represent what the goals of the movement is, which if you don't know, by the way, you can go to blacklivesmatter.com and actually see their statements and goals of the organization. But I feel that that's what people have associated the Black Lives Matter movement to mean, like these rioters who are destroying their own neighborhoods and really poverty, American economic system, the institutions in America are destroying the black neighborhoods. So I feel like that's what people associate, like when I wear, kind of like what Jordan was saying, like I'm wearing my shirt, people were saying, no. People think that like, oh, she must be like one of those rioters, those radical, she's probably not even active in the church thing. Like, so, yeah, people think that and it's ridiculous.
I think this is kind of off topic, but going off what like Melody just said, are you okay?
Yeah, I'm good.
But
this is like a release.
On our trip, Melody had said something in one of our like debriefings one day, and she said that sometimes people think that it was like if you're a member of the church, why are you an activist? Like why do you care about these things? But really, it should be like we should be active in these causes because we're members of the church. And so I think that's kind of like goes with it too. Like people don't believe that like we should be like activists and be like seeking social justice on these things when really like our faith should empower us to go after those things and make them better. Since we are all children of God and we should all, you know, have a great life here on earth and be equal in that.
Oh man, no.
Oh my goodness.
I was trying to have a good day today. Sorry. Let Chrissy, let the calm first.
That was just like the order we go.
It's interesting because we had a class, we took like race and minority relations class here, and I read something and it was saying like the only difference between All Lives Matter and Black Lives Matter is the word black. And so it's like someone that says all lives matter, like that is the only thing that you're really taking out of the equation is black people. And so that's kind of what I think of when I see all lives matter. Like you really don't think that all lives matter if black lives don't matter.
Yeah, I just think it's like, the same like thought process as Chrissy. Like that's just where I automatically go to, and I just try to like educate them on like yes, that's true, but right now we're focusing on the Black struggle, and we're just gonna like work on that. That's why it's Black Lives Matter. Not that we're diminishing from other people's lives, or the movement's diminishing from other people's lives, but yeah, so same thing. It just kind of shows like almost like an ignorance when people say that, like, I don't get it, but yeah. So.
Yeah, when people say that, I try to have patience with it.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the colorblind ideology of like, we don't see color, like everyone's equal and everyone matters, when really that's just putting a band-aid over the problem. It's not actually fixing or addressing the problem. So by saying all lives matter, you're saying the Black struggle doesn't really matter because, hey, like everyone else is struggling too. And I think that's America's problem. America has a problem with facing our demons and facing the truth, so they just like sweep it over with colorblindness, sweep it over with all lives matter. And really, these particular people at this particular time needs attention, needs legislation and things that's going to address the Black problem. And by ignoring the Black problem, you're really saying that all lives don't matter. You're really saying that, well, all lives matter, but I'm not actually willing to do anything about it, you know? So like that thought of all lives matter is completely disregarding the Black experience, the Black life in America. Like, you don't care actually about the Black life.
Shout out to y'all. We love them. We appreciate you.
Yeah, it's just like here, like we have great professors and stuff that aren't Black, but that get, you know, issues and understand and have the sources and the knowledge to back up, you know, the facts. And I think, yeah, as long as, I think if you're educated about it, it doesn't matter like what color or whatever, you know, justice is justice. So.
I heard one of my professors like talk to like, we're talking about something and we're talking about privilege, specifically white privilege. And she like told the students like, as like receivers of white privilege, it is your duty to use your privilege to educate others and help others be aware of the problems. Because I think that I'm not asking for a white savior. I don't need a white savior to come and save the Black race. But I think when people of other races get involved, it shows that like there aren't these little angry Black people who are so mad about things that happened like 100 years ago, that like other people actually could care and people actually realize that this is a problem that's like happening, and it's not just like they are complaining again, like pulling the race card again, but like these are actual things that affect actual people, and it shows that like, we matter. Yeah.
I think that like as much time as they spend on showing riots and protests and things like that, it's like, why don't you spend time documenting like, wow, like there are so many Black individuals struggling, like that are living in like these ghettos or that are incarcerated, like why are we not fixing these problems? I think if we spent more time on that, it would make sense, like people would understand like, oh, like that's why they're upset.
So like if you spend all these times showing these riots, it's like, see, they're the reasons for their own problems. They're the ones that are destroying their own neighborhoods. Like, and it takes the focus off of the real problem, the institutionalized racism that happens in America. And America just like has a history of vilifying Black people and making Black people seem like the super predator, the enemy, the criminal, the gangster, the thug. So.
I think there just needs to be more education too, because I feel like
That's
true,
true, yeah.
like the perception is so harsh and wrong that people don't even want to approach it.
We should have this discussion at BYU as a whole.
That's true.
Yeah,
We should have a panel discussion
That'd
about
be a
Black
good
Lives Matter.
conversation.
Yeah, we need more conversation at BYU about race, period.